I use video through the entire sales process. For me, video is all about how do you grab their attention in 3 seconds?
Why is video kind of so neglected a lot of the time? I get video would work. I get it's important. I am terrified to go on video.
One of the tips I have for anybody who wants to do more video is just...
Hello, welcome to B2B Revenue Leaders. I'm your host, Dustin Tysick. Today, I'm joined by Chris Bogue. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I think this will be a fun one. It's probably not going to come out on a Friday, but it's Friday right now. So it's a nice way to end the afternoon. And one thing yeah, exactly. It's the one thing, I do on the forum as people sign up for this podcast is I ask them for their hot take. And you had probably the most interesting one where you said your hot take is that people don't need hot takes. So explain that.
Everybody in your hot takes, everyone in B2B wants to turn everything to a competition, pit everybody against each other. You don't need any of that. All right. Go make friends with an unlikely person and then go do something that only the two of you could imagine together. And that agreement is actually very interesting. And that's, find someone interesting to agree with instead of your hot takes. That's my hot take.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. I think people, they kind of do it because sometimes that disagreement stuff goes viral in quotes. It's like I've seen that on LinkedIn, like people purposely kind of just shitting on each other because they think they'll get more traction that way. But yeah, it doesn't really pay off all the time.
And it does, but we'll get into this in the interview probably, but I come from a sketch comedy background and an improv comedy background. The rule of improv is yes and you learn that beginner improvisers, when they take an improv class, they always want to turn everything into a fight. And they always want to turn everything into an argument because that seems like an easy go-to. That seems like an easy attention-grabbing thing. From a scene writing perspective, a fight is a scene where nothing is happening. Like that fight must conclude before the action can continue. So a scene that is an argument is actually a scene that's completely static. Only once the argument is resolved can we take the audience somewhere new. And that's why I focus on the agreement. It's not because I'm nice. I think I'm nice, but it's not even a nice thing. It's once you say yes, you can take the scene to some place the audience never imagined. And if all you're going to do is argue, you're always going to stay in the same place.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'll kind of yes end you here and take it in an entirely different direction. And what I'm actually really excited to talk about here, though, is more on the video side of things. So we were talking before, like we actually got in touch because you sent me a video on LinkedIn and said, hey, I think it'll be a good guest for the show. And it was actually a fun, interesting video, which is a little bit rare in the B2B space. Like I've got some videos that aren't as fun or interesting. So I'm curious how you think through that. Maybe not for pitching podcasts, but just even on the sales side, like why is video kind of so neglected a lot of the time?
Video is neglected because it's hard. It's harder to do. And with something like email, with something like phone, with anything in life, when it works, smart people or analytical people will say, why did that work? And they'll try to reproduce it. And with video, you have so many different moving parts. You have your on-camera performance, you have your dialogue, the words that you're saying, you have your lighting. I care a lot about the subtitles. So it's also a text experience. You are reading the video as you're watching it. There are thumbnails. There are subject lines. There's the copy that you write in your message or your email when you send it over. There's all these different aspects. And companies want to do video, especially for sales. They're like, okay, go be creative, Yeah. And everybody's like, what does that mean? And you end up saying too much. You give too much exposition. I was always taught as like a writer and a comedy writer, they say start in the middle. Just start in the middle. Start with the action. On a stage, if you're in an improv scene, there's a rule that says if you're on stage and your feet aren't moving, if you notice you've been standing still, find some reason to start moving your feet. Start moving the action. So I always start the video with something that the recipient knows is true. That's the most attention-grabbing thing. I just start talking to them like I know them. And in your case, I was talking about an episode you did. And I apologize. I'm going to share a little background on how I do outreach. So this was an example of I went through and I found a bunch of podcasts that guests that I've had on my show have been on. And then I kind of reverse engineered that. I went back and I listened to the episode that they were on. If it seemed like a relevant fit, then I reached out and I was like, hey, I'm reaching out because you had this guest on and I listened to this episode, and let me know if you ever need a guest. And that's pretty much all it is. But when you see me and I'm talking about you and I'm talking about your podcast and I'm talking about a specific episode and I'm talking about the guest that I had on that episode, we're 5 seconds into the video and all of a sudden it feels like we know each other. And for me, video is all about how do you grab their attention in 3 seconds? How do you establish relevance? And then what are you asking them for? And can you make it something that's very easy to say yes to? And I give them an either or usually. I'm like, hey, if you ever need a guest, let me know. And if you don't ever need a guest, keep doing a great show because I really enjoyed it. It's because I'm preparing for a safe landing if this goes badly. It's like a trapeze artist. The first thing they do is they teach you how to fall. Well, in video for sales, the first thing I'm doing is I'm teaching you how to get rejected. I'm even explaining to you, here's what's going to happen if you say no. I'm going to continue being your fan, but let me know if you ever need a guest. That's it. Nice and light and simple. It was, I think 30 seconds long was that video. I had a little clip so you could see what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, here's my show. I had a couple cutaways, but it was in the blink of the eye because I know you have a computer just like the rest of us. So if you're like, who is Chris Bogue? You can Google me and you can go to my LinkedIn. You can look. I don't need to feature dump myself on you for the first minute and a half of the video before I get to something that you're actually going to care about. I can just start with what you care about and end it with something simple that I hope you'll say yes to.
Yeah, I love how simple and kind of human it all is. Like, I feel like we overthink this sometimes, especially in B2B. Like, I have to be super formal with how I reach out when you would never actually talk to someone like that in real life. Like, what I liked about your video and some of the other videos I get that are good is they're talking to me like I'm a human. Like, even the CEO of the biggest company is a person. Like, you can talk to him like a person. And sometimes that beats creativity. Like, sometimes I find when they tell you to go be creative, it gets really cutesy and gimmicky, which is kind of eye-catching, but at the same time has no actual substance behind it. So it doesn't work as well.
It's needy. Yeah. It's needy. Yeah. And this drives me nuts. I'm actually glad you brought that up because I do two very different types of video.
Yeah.
I do video prospecting for sales and I do video content for LinkedIn and TikTok. Right. So these two types of videos look nothing alike. If anybody goes and follows me on LinkedIn, which you should, I do all sorts of sketch comedy. I'm playing multiple characters. I'm playing musical instruments. I'm bringing in guests. I've got a horror movie I'm dropping on LinkedIn. I'm doing all this crazy stuff because that's what people want in the newsfeed. When people open up that newsfeed, they want to be taken somewhere that they've never been before. They want to learn something they didn't even know they wanted to know. Sky's the limit out there in the newsfeed. That's not the rules that your email inbox is playing by. I firmly believe that when you go into your email inbox, you are looking for someone to talk to you straight. I hate email. If I am checking my inbox, it's because I'm expecting something from a client or from my boss or from a subordinate. Maybe I know that I've got a 20% offer from some company that I shop at and I want to spend it before it expires this weekend. I want to get in and I want to get out as quickly as possible. And my problem is people see what I'm doing in the newsfeed. And again, it's crazy. Sometimes I'm doing like 5 or 6 characters all in one video because I'm a sketch comedian and that was how I learned to entertain people. And so they assume, oh, he must be sending that in sales. He must send funny videos to people. And because they're funny, that's why people watch them. I tell them, no, I don't put any comedy in the video. I talk straight to the person for 30 seconds. And then I ask them something simple. And then that's it. And then if they look for me, they'll find all the whimsy and delight and absurdity. But it's not about selling the whimsy and the delight and the absurdity. It's because I think they might get something out of it. And that's what the video message is about.
Yeah, I like that parallel there between email because I'm the same way. Like, I become very happy when I've cleared out my email and I don't have to look at it anymore. It makes my day doing that. So even just to go back to like actually getting an email without a video, if it's over a certain length, I just am probably not going to read it. I'm going to skim the title and a couple lines. And it's kind of even like that with video, where I get one and I play it and I'm like, yeah, this is 4 minutes. I don't have 4 minutes. So do you usually stick to that 30-second-ish is kind of the sweet spot when you reach out?
Good question. So my general rule for video is the shorter the better. And when a company brings me in, I'm almost always trying to get them to simplify the message and shorten it down. You know, I've got nothing against long form content. I do a lot of long form content myself. I've never met someone who hired me because they needed to figure out how to be more long winded. You know, almost always what's happening is they're showing me a video. Usually it's a video that's like 7 or 8 minutes long. And I take my notes and I watch it and I go, okay, here at the 3-minute, 17-second mark, you have this wonderful little aside moment that I think was spontaneous. You had this kind of unexpected moment here. That's going to be the start of the video. Yeah. And it's going to be 30 seconds long. And it's just going to be that. We're going to take that moment and that's all it is. And if it works, we're going to do it again. You know, we're going to go deeper in that. If I don't know you, I am going to try very hard to keep it 45 seconds or shorter. And I use video through the entire sales process. And I use it for quotes. I use it for meeting recaps. I use it to educate multiple decision makers. I use it for customer success. So my philosophy is the deeper we are into the cycle, at some point I bought myself a little bit of extra time. I'll send something that's maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or maybe 5 minutes long when it's like, hey, here's the business case. Here's the 3 different packages. Here's what you're going to get out of each of them and what scheduling and pricing is going to look like. And like, but that's only once I've bought that credibility. You know, if you're showing up and you're a complete stranger and you're in their inbox, keep it short. 45 seconds is a wonderful goal. And as you know, as you mentioned, as a guy who gets videos, your prospect will usually say, thank God, because they're usually much longer than that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's the thing with it too is with the videos, sometimes there's the length for sure, which I totally agree with. You got to earn kind of the right almost. There's also the ask as well on the first one, where I find some people, they kind of, it's like they're proposing on the first date sort of thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're just skipping stages and jumping ahead and asking for a whole bunch of your time, or, you know, diving right into, you know, 10-second spiel. This is what we do. Can I have a meeting? And it's like, you haven't really earned the trust to where I'm willing to commit to that.
I would agree. I rarely send video as the first touch. I do sometimes though. And that's usually because I'm connected with someone on LinkedIn. And one of the tips I have for anybody who wants to do more video is just have your setup someplace where it's always ready to go. And the easier it is for you in the middle of a moment to just turn it on and bust one out, the better. And like, I will do, if somebody is like, literally comments like, I've been looking to do more video. I've been searching around for if they're that on the nose, I'll try to pop off a video and get it over to them in under 10 minutes, where it's like, hey, Dustin, it's normally a little fast for me, but I couldn't help but notice you were looking for a video coach. And here's why I think it would be a good idea for us to meet, you know? Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. If you want to know anything more, just respond to this with anything. You could like DM me back. Sometimes I even give them a little emoji out too. I'm like, hey, you can respond to this with anything. If you send me a thumbs up, I can send you my calendar if you want to look at some times. And if you send me a thumbs down, I'll never ask you this question ever again. You know, I do not take it personally either way, but no matter what, thanks a lot. And I'll see you out there. And yeah, even then I'll get people who like, they'll send me a message being like, I'm not going to send you a thumbs down emoji, but this is not really a good time for this. And that's fine, you know, because the no's are softer when you introduce yourself that way. So now it's no, here's why I don't think it's a good fit, and not, no, stop harassing me. I'm putting you on the do not call list. I'm going to make an angry LinkedIn post about what a disrespectful jerk you are. Yeah. Like, there's a vulnerability that comes with putting yourself out there. Not always, but, oftentimes people reciprocate that in a way that they might not with, say, a cold email.
Yeah, I love giving them the out, because there's nothing worse than when, you say no to a salesperson. I get you have to handle the objection and all that, but where they just don't let up and they just keep going and going, it's like, now it's a little much. But I do want to ask one video question that people listening might be thinking is, I'm sure there's people out there who totally buy in. They're like, yeah, I get video would work. I get it's important. I am terrified to go on video. And I'm sure you get people like this that you have to coach. And maybe they're like a little rigid or stiff or scared. So how do you coach people and talk them through that to actually get comfortable being on video?
I love this question. So question is, what do you do with people who are stiff or scared or self-conscious about the way that they look on video? I will say, well, for my coaching, the first week, we never shoot any video. That's always the first thing. The video starts the second week. Whenever I coach somebody, there's a couple of exercises we do. One is I make them go ask their audience a question about something that ideally they don't know the answer to. Usually it's some sort of controversy in their industry. And the first video is always just them reacting to that. It's like, hey, I asked this question. Here's what the audience said, and here's my reaction to that. I do a lot of exercises with people to get them into a good mindset. I like to ask people, tell me about a couple times in your life where you objectively won something. Have you ever won an award? Were you ever in sports? Did you ever do some sort of like competitive club? Or sometime they were on stage? And I actually call what I do, I have a fancy word for it. I call it soliloquy, because I say it's the long lost art of just talking straight to the audience. This is something that has been around for a long time. Shakespeare did this all the time. And so did Ferris Bueller. And so did The Office and Parks and Rec. And there's all these beloved forms of entertainment where the characters are talking and then they look straight at the camera and they're just like, and the audience loves it, So I'm like, we need to find you as the natural storyteller. And that means sometimes you're the student and sometimes you're the teacher. And again, I come from a sketch comedy background. So I was often writing and directing shows that I was not in. I was the writer and I would work with a cast of actors. So when you are a director and somebody is looking at you and they're very stiff, you don't say this person isn't funny. You say this is a straight man, and I'm going to put him in a situation where he's super rigid and he's playing off a completely off the wall kind of energy. And that's going to be really funny, not because he's trying to be the funny guy. It's because he's going to sit there completely wooden and the audience is going to laugh at that contrast, Yeah. So again, this comes back to that idea of like, I don't tell people to be funny. I tell people to go tell the truth, and sometimes if I'm working with somebody who's an executive, I'm like, look, you are a man who built a business. You're a man who has hired and fired people. When we want you to go out there as the boss, you're going to be talking from the perspective of like, I've gotten stuff done and I've accomplished things and I've made money and I've, all that stuff. But also sometimes you're dad, and you're different with your kids. There's a different level of vulnerability out there, or you're different when you're around your friends, or you're different when you're given a speech at your friend's wedding as their best man. There's all these different circumstances where we have to pop into like a slightly different version of ourselves. So I'm like, who do you want to be out there? Are you the guy who is being a little serious right now because you're talking about something a little serious? Are you the guy that trains sales teams and you're out here getting everybody pumped up? Like we all, if we take a deep look within ourselves, can find that no, actually we've played like multiple different roles throughout our lives. Sometimes we're in charge, sometimes we're not in charge. I always say like, figure out, does the audience want you to be Batman, or do they want you to be Robin, or do they want you to be Alfred? It changes. Sometimes you've got a very big ego and they're Batman, and they want Alfred to come out and tell them what the newest gadget is and whether it comes in black and whether it can, scale the side of a cliff or something. And then they want you to be on your way. Sometimes they want a sidekick, and you're out there like, hey, you got to go out there and kick some ass. And that's why I'm going to help you do X, Y, and Z. And sometimes they want you to be Batman. Sometimes somebody's like, I am drowning. I am afraid. I do not know what to do. I need someone to come in and save me because I literally don't know what to do. And all three of those characters are within us. You know, you got to find the ones that feel natural, and you got to tell the truth. And that's also where people go wrong, because they get caught up in saying what they think the audience wants to hear instead of what they know is true.
Yeah, I love what you ended with there too, about it being a bit more natural. Because some people, like you said, maybe they can do Batman, Robin, Alfred. Maybe they're not going to be the Riddler. Like, it's just not their thing. Yeah. It's not natural to crack those jokes or whatever. So yeah, I like that. One question to wrap it all up that I'm pretty curious about here is, we've talked a lot about, you mentioned being able to record, be able to push record and go, essentially, right? I had an experience at former company where it was like back when we were in the office and it's cubicles and that sort of stuff. So we didn't really have that. So we set up a little studio. And the one thing I found is some people want to work from a script and should not. And some are the other way. Like, I would have the most charismatic salesperson, make friends with everyone, absolutely hilarious, but they demanded a script. And when I gave them a script, all their personality went away. So I'm curious, when you're helping people here, do you prefer to script things, prefer not? Does it depend on the person? Like, if you're coaching someone, how do you think through that?
I script everything, which is kind of a surprise to people. But yeah, I'm a big fan of, like, first you learn the rules, then you can break them. And I teach people to write in bullet points. That is, whether I'm doing entertainment or whether I'm doing video prospecting for sales, I always type up a bullet point script. And the bullet points are about, can you say exactly what you want to say, but not more than that, while still allowing you the flexibility to improvise. Also, if you have to edit yourself, it's a lot easier, like, especially if you're doing a longer one, to just like stop, do the bullet point over again, and you can kind of just stitch them together. I talk a lot too, and it's interesting because, again, I did comedy all my life. I learned comedy. I learned all these frameworks from Chicago's Second City, which like is where I learned to do my stuff. But they all translate really well to just regular business writing and writing in general. And, I always talk about the rule of threes, because there's this magic rule of three in comedy where, like, punchlines are funnier in lists of threes. Yep. And if I'm going to write a bullet point script for anybody, the easiest thing is, like, what's your hook? What's your attention grabbing line? You got 3 bullet points, and then you close it out. Hey, I wanted to talk to you because of da-da-da and da-da-da and da-da-da. So if you're interested, here's what I thought we should do next. And then you wrap it up. There is such a natural rhythm to that. And even, like, I did a lot of long form improv where it was like, you'd get a word and then you go improvise for 45 minutes. And there were always undergirding structures. And, like, even if you think of, like, watching a sitcom, a sitcom is a play in 3 acts. A sitcom is a play in 3 acts with, 2 breaks in the middle. Usually there's 3 different through lines going in there. Like, you're going to sound so much better the shorter you are. Like, the less you say, the greater the likelihood that 100% of what you say sounds awesome. And especially if you're nervous, write it out on bullet points. You don't have to read from the script, look straight into the lens the whole time, but do try to stick to that structure because it is important.
Yeah, I love that, the fact that it's bullet points. I think that's where I went wrong. They demanded a script and then sat there reading from the script. The funniest thing is, what made the video work is I took about a bunch of their outtakes where they're swearing at me about other stuff and cussing me out for making them do this, and it made an entertaining video. So, like, the personality was there, the structure was probably overkill, and I think it can tear down the personality.
So it's funny too, because I always say never just make, if you're gonna make a video for sales, might as well make 5, right? Yeah. At least.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I find too with the bullet points is, like, they'll change as it goes. And by the time I'm doing video number 10, maybe I found a more kind of natural phrasing for those words. But most of the time I'm not drastically changing what I'm saying. Those first couple sentences are always different because the person's got a different name and I have a different reason why I'm reaching out. But then it all kind of leads back to the same thing, which is like, hey, is this something you'd want to chat about? Let me know. And if not, that's fine too. I really appreciate you watching this. And then that's it. And like, again, I can put all sorts of creativity in other places, and I can get really creative with my website. I can get creative with my content. I can make it so if they're like, okay, who is this guy? And they look me up, they're going to find lots of delightful stuff. But if you're doing outbound sales, you really shouldn't be changing the message that drastically every time.
Yeah. Find one that works, refine it a little bit here and there, make it personal. But yeah, I totally agree with that. Well, Chris, it was great talking about video and sales. If people watch this and they think I need to get better at video and sales, how can they connect with you to learn more?
Yeah, so the easiest way to connect with me is just go on LinkedIn, look up Chris Bogue. I post new video content all the time. Lots of it is funny. Put lots of sketch comedy out there. I do shows. I do an improv show called Death by PowerPoint. But I also do a lot of educational content. There's a lot of people trying to figure out how to stand out right now and how to get noticed by buyers in a way that is authentic and also effective. So go to Chris Bogue on LinkedIn, or go to chrisbogue.io is my website. I have a digital course called The Complete Guide to Selling on Video. If you want to check that out. You can also listen to me on Spotify. I have a show called Chris Sells His Soul.
Awesome. Well, we'll include all those links for our listeners. Chris, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode. So my key takeaway is around really finding that version of you that is authentic. So Chris's example of, you can either be Batman, Robin, or Alfred. Or, you're a person who started a company, but you're also a dad, a person who has friends and hobbies and more, right? So it really just highlights the fact that we all have these different roles we play, and that you can really choose which to bring to life on camera. So I just want to wrap it with saying, being on video is hard. It's tough, it's awkward, it's scary. So I hope this episode helped convince you to actually give it a try and give you a bit of courage to get out there. So if you enjoyed this episode, head on over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, hit follow, and follow along with our new episodes. As always, I'll be back on Tuesday with a new episode.